They had a meal with God. They ate and they drank with him. So it's the first Eucharist that happened. And look, it's rooted in the Old Testament. It's not something new. Jesus made it new by the cross. So let us just think, just like the fathers of the church who looked at everything in the Old Testament as a sign of Jesus. I will talk about it later, but let me just go for it point by point. So when we talk about like the Old Testament and the New Testament, now we're talking about two stuff. And it seems like, look, we all read the Bible, I believe. And we always think that, okay, look, the New Testament is nice and the Old Testament is nice as well, but I prefer the New Testament. It's much better, it's easier, it's shorter, and I can understand it better. No. The Old Testament and the New Testament are really connected in a way that we never imagined before. So the fathers of the church, as I spoke before, they saw Christ in the Old Testament. And it seems like it's a new thing that they did, but believe me, they were not the first ones who did that. Jesus himself did this reading. Do you remember when Jesus, after the resurrection, there were two disciples going to Emmaus, and Jesus walked with them, and he was doing something very interesting. It's like a Bible study. He went with them and he was explaining them, and they were discussing the Torah, the Psalms, and the prophets. So he took this whole book and he said, okay, let's do Bible study. Let's see Jesus. Let's see the Christ that God gave you in this book that you think is just past. So Jesus was the first one who pointed to the Old Testament, saying that, look at the Old Testament, I am there. I should be there, and you should see me there. So the prophet Jeremiah, in chapter 31, in chapter 31, he was talking about the new covenant. And he said something very interesting that I would summarize it with like 3 points. The first, this covenant that is made in us, it's in our hearts. So the second point is that this covenant should not be taught. It's like a covenant that it's already planted in our hearts. The third thing is that we can find Hebrews, in the letter to the Hebrews 8, it says, when the new comes, the old is about to vanish. It has never said that when the new comes, the old is vanished, or there's no more Old Testament. No, it says when the new comes, the old is about to vanish. And I remember this when my teacher told me that in school. He said, when the writer of the letter to the Hebrews said is about to vanish, he knows very well that we are not ready and we are not really in the New Testament. Look, we have the New Testament. We have a written New Testament. But believe me, we are still not living every part of the New Testament. So the Old Testament will vanish, and we will not be in any need for the law if we really live the New Testament. But we still need the law, just like St. Paul says in his letter to the Romans. He said that we still need the law because we still need to understand what is sin. Because when we understand what is sin, we can avoid it and lives in grace. So now we can do something that is not really like good, and we will see its circumstances after a while. When we say, okay, I'm living in the New Testament, there's no need for any laws. I'm living in the freedom of God. I'm living freely. But after a while, you realize that you're living nothing, because Jesus himself was clear about it. And he said, the Old Testament, let's explore the Old Testament to understand the New Testament. And also there is one only reason for us not to avoid the Old Testament. Sometimes, look, we as Christians, we are really scared of the Old Testament. It's really scary. Sometimes we don't understand everything inside it. And sometimes we got a lot of questions about it. And because it's really big, and it was written for like in a period of a long time, we feel like, okay, I don't need this. I really just to understand this and this in the New Testament, just forget about the Old. Remember this, and always remember this, that the evangelists, when they wrote the New Testament, or anybody in the New Testament who has the main authors of the New Testament, they wrote every word in the New Testament thinking about and having the background of the Old Testament. Because, for example, the evangelist Matthew will never mention anything from the prophet Isaiah or prophet Jeremiah or anybody without knowing them, and knowing them very perfectly, that he was able to cite verses from everywhere. Like, wow, like when we read Matthew, wow, you feel like he's an expert of the Old Testament. He knows everything about it, and he just represents Jesus in a way that he's the fulfillment of the Old Testament. And we can never understand Jesus in isolation of the Old Testament. So another question, and I'm sure that you all know it, but just let me just conclude everything and make the points clear. So what does the New Testament include? And when we talk about the New Testament, we are talking about 27 books that are written by many different persons. And these 27 books, could anybody help me with the categories that we can do together? I just want to interact. I don't want to talk all the time.
What do you mean by categories?
So we say that we have 27 books, and we can divide them into 4 different parts, let's say. So what are the first 4 parts that we are talking about?
The gospel.
Yeah. The second one. So the first one is the gospel. The second one is
The early church.
which is called, I'm sorry, I'm thirsty.
Acts.
Acts of the Apostles. And the third one?
The letters. So like
the letters. And the fourth one?
Revelation.
Is the Revelation. So please keep this in your minds, because I'm gonna say something. It's not from me, it's from my teacher, and it's really interesting. So we're talking about the 4 books that are called the gospel. And believe me, my teacher, when we say the gospels, he went crazy. Like, don't you ever say gospels. It's one gospel. It's one good news. We are not talking about 4 gospels. We're talking about one gospel that was written by 4 people, or in 4 books. So every time we want him to be crazy and be angry, we just say the gospels. And he said, don't you ever say gospels. So that's the way we click his anger button, so we can move. So let's remember this. So the first part is the gospel. The second part is the Acts of the Apostles. The third part is the letters. And the fourth is the Revelation. Okay. Does anybody remember the parts of the Old Testament? Can anybody help me, please? Please.
I think that, like, I don't know if I can say the theological names, but like the creation, right?
So the first 5 books, what do we call them?
It's like the
Torah.
The Torah. Yeah. Who said that?
Carmela.
Yeah, we should clap for her. So the first part is the Torah. It's the 5 books of Moses. That's according to the Jewish tradition. They call them the 5 books of Moses. The second part is
Psalms and prophets.
You just mixed 2 books together.
Yeah,
so wait for it.
2 different.
Yeah.
Psalms and after prophets.
Yeah, so let's take the Bible and look at it. So the first 5 books are called the Torah, the 5 books of the law. The second part, which starts with, I don't know, Joshua, I think in English, yeah, Joshua, we said the book of Joshua. So the second part goes from the book of Joshua to the Kings, and we call them the historical books. that talks about the history of the people of Israel. The third part is the wisdom books, which includes the Psalms, like Ben Sirach, and the wisdom, and everything that is related to the wisdom. And the fourth part are the prophets. So let me do this. So you remember we have 4 parts in the I need a board. I just feel like I'm a teacher now.
What is the second part of the Old Testament?
Yeah, so there is like a thing here that allows me to write or something, right? Okay, yeah, here it is. I will share it with you. So the first part of I feel like I'm a teacher. I feel bad for that. So
nice. I didn't know that.
the Old Testament, where I can draw, yeah, it should be, okay, the color is, where's the color? Yeah, let's say black. So the Old Testament, I already have a very bad handwriting. So Old Testament, New Testament. Oh my God, that's difficult. So we have the Old Testament and the New. Oh, I can't make a straight line. Okay, so the first part of the New Testament, we say the Gospels. I will not write the whole word because you will laugh at me. The second part is the Acts of the Apostles. That's difficult. The third part are the letters, and the fourth are the revelations. Okay, that's good. In the Old Testament, we have the Torah, the historical books, oh my God, that's difficult, the wisdom books, and the prophetic books. And here is the surprise, guys. So the Gospels in the New Testament are representing the Torah. And with the Gospels, the life of Jesus, we are having a new Torah, a new law. With the Acts of the Apostles, we're having the new history of the people of God. Look, in the Old Testament, we saw the history of the people of God with people of Israel. Now we're looking at the church as the new people of God who they are living the life of Jesus, the Torah, and now they are showing it in the church. And the third part is the wisdom, the letters that we read now, the letters that gives us the wisdom of the first generations of the people who lived with Jesus Christ. And it's similar to the books of wisdom and the book of Revelation, which sometimes seems like a horror movie or something. It's the prophetic part of the New Testament. So now I don't want anybody to tell me that the Old Testament is not related to the New Testament, please. Okay? So I hope that you got it. Okay? Is it good? Okay, great.
Very good, Abdallah.
Thank you. It's not from me, it's from my teacher. His name is Father David Neuhaus, and he's a Jesuit. And for your information, he was born as a Jew, and in his earlier life, he met Jesus and he became Christian for sure, became Catholic because he's a priest.
I know him.
Yeah.
He was a bishop.
No, he was a vicar. Yeah, with the Hebrew speaking community. Where are you from, Michel? Nazareth?
I'm from Haifa.
Haifa, because Mazawi, I thought that you should be from Nazareth.
Yeah, my family, I have family.
Okay, great.
But that's back.
Great. So you see, now we are looking at the New Testament and the Old Testament as the two like two same stuff on a mirror. Because Jesus, when giving us something, he will not overwhelm us. He will not say, okay, here's the New Testament, take it. No, he built everything, and the church also built everything on everything we already knew and everything that was already revealed for us. So let's talk about history. Okay, now you can turn off your cams, your microphones, and sleep, because history is boring. I know that. Okay, so let's talk about history. I'm trying to make it very, very, very interesting for you. So let me try. So let's talk about 3 stages of making this New Testament. We're talking only about the New Testament now, okay? The first stage is Jesus is in active evangelization. Jesus is the person who's doing everything. This is the first part. The second part is, or the second stage is, Jesus is the subject of the apostles' oral evangelization. Okay, after Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, we turn into a new stage, which is Jesus is the subject of the apostles' oral evangelization. And the third part, which we have now, is Jesus is the subject of the apostles' written evangelization. So as soon as I'm feeling like I'm a teacher now, I want one of you to repeat the 3 stages that I just mentioned. Can you? Can anybody do that? No?
Go, Carmela.
Carmela's eating now. Who can re-mention these 3 stages? I told you, history is boring. I know that.
So Jesus is acting, the first
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
He's the subject, the second one.
He's the subject of what?
Of the apostles
Oral.
speaking oral.
Yeah, oral evangelization. And
writing. Yeah.
yeah, so a clap for Rosanna. Oh, because after like 5 minutes of begging you to answer me, nobody answered, and she did it. Thank you. So let's talk about these 3 stages, and let's say why we move from this stage to the other. So the first one, it's clear. This stage, we passed this stage because Jesus died and resurrected, and he's not on earth anymore. This is the only reason why this stage is that short. And also, Jesus did not write anything. And unfortunately, we didn't have any smartphones at that time, so nobody recorded anything that Jesus said, unfortunately. So the second stage is Jesus is the subject of the disciples or the apostles' oral evangelization. Everybody, after Jesus' resurrection, and especially after the Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit came to the apostles, all the apostles changed and they went and they evangelized and they were talking about Jesus. And also something that happened that was really bad at that time, but it was good for Christianity, which is the fall of Jerusalem and the fall of the temple. So after year 70 AD, the temple was not the center of the Jewish religion anymore because there's no more temple. So all the Christians who we see in the Acts of the Apostles, now they are not anymore in Jerusalem, so they spread it. The second bad thing that happened that it was really good for Christianity is persecution, for sure. So Christians were persecuted in Jerusalem, so they had to leave. They brought this good news with them to the whole world. And now we see at the end of the Acts of the Apostles, we see that the apostles went everywhere, especially Peter and Paul. They went everywhere. And they reached the biggest city in the world at that time, which is Rome. So, wow, we did it in like, persecution did it for us. We didn't have to do anything. We didn't have to buy any tickets. We didn't, like, St. Paul was really lucky at that time. So if it was up to him, he had to work and he had to do more tents to get more money to travel. But he was imprisoned. They were taking him from place to another, and he was taking the gospel with him and spreading the word for everybody. So this stage ended when something started, which is after a lot of years, the apostles were expecting Jesus to come as soon as possible, but he did not come, obviously, until now. And they witnessed the death of the first apostles who saw Jesus. So they said, okay, there is an authority of the written word, and we live in a world that there is no social media, there is no radio, there is no TV, there's nothing now. So let us do something written so it can sustain, it can remain. So people can read it after a while and said, okay, this is the gospel of Jesus. This is the good news that we have to give to the world. So what happened at that time? They started writing. And the first one in the New Testament who started writing was the Apostle Paul, who started writing letters for everybody, for the churches, for the local communities, to tell them about Jesus Christ. And we can see something very interesting if we read the letters of St. Paul. He passed the 3 stages. He met Jesus, in his vision on his way to Damascus. The second stage is that he talked to them about Jesus Christ, and the third one is that he start writing them and reminding them of what he already said. So it's really interesting that in letters of St. Paul we can see all this stuff. Okay, I did this thing before, which is people were asking me about the 4 Gospels, and I told them, like, what is the problem with the 4 Gospels? Okay, I'm sorry for saying Gospels, but that's what I can say now. So I said, okay, what do you mean by the problem with the 4 narratives? And like a kid, he was like only 14 or 13 years old. He said, like, look, everybody around us telling us that the Gospel of Matthew is different from the Gospel of Luke. It's not. If it's real, it would be similar. And I said, okay. I went to YouTube and I was looking for, like, I don't know, like abstract videos or something that a person could not understand. It's used for psychological stuff. So I put it on the screen and I asked them, okay, now look at the video, and after a while I'll ask you a few questions about it. So I did it. They watched the video, and after that I told them to write what did they see. So he wrote something, another girl wrote something else, and another boy wrote something else. So I asked them to read it. So each one of them read something different. And I said, okay, I can't believe that you all watched the same video. And the girl said, no, you were here. You're lying at us. You saw us. I said, okay, wait for me. Let me give you the point. So the boy, he was really clever. He looked at me and I said, okay, you don't have to embarrass me. You don't have to answer me. I just understood it. I said, okay, can you tell them what did you understand? He said, like, I think that each one of the evangelists saw something that he wanted to see in Jesus. He did not just project it. This is not what he meant. He's a kid. He just said it. But I mean, like, when we have 4 narratives, we have 4 stories about Jesus. It means only one thing, that it's very real, and it's more real than anything that we already witnessed in our life. Jesus is real, and as Barbara always says in her videos, Jesus is alive. And look, this difference between the Gospel of Matthew or the Gospel of Luke or the Gospel of John is a sign of credibility. It's a sign of this is like a true thing. There are no lies in it. So let me go through it. So why did they start writing? Like, we know that, like, what does their writing is about? Like, did they write the story of Jesus because they have to keep like something written for their archive or something? No. There are 3 main points that I like to point for you. The first one is the manifestation of faith. When each one of the evangelists or the authors of the letters or the revelation or anything wrote anything, it was for the reason of the manifestation of faith, to tell the whole world and everybody who reads this that Jesus is alive. Jesus that you killed, you persecuted, is alive, and Jesus is still working. Like, you think that you killed him? No. He's alive and he's still working. The second point, or the second thing that they always meant by writing anything in the New Testament, is the apologetic reasons. A lot of people, they were telling, okay, you Christians, you're believing in so and so and so and so. So they have to make it clear by writing, so anybody can read this, can understand what does it mean, the Christian faith. The third part, or the third point, is to limit any kind of rumor about Jesus. And we can see this in the early church when we look at the heresies and all this stuff that happened, but it started much before, when people were thinking that Jesus, okay, look, Jesus is like Superman. He's a man with power that came and he's doing a lot of like work, and now he's not here anymore. Or Jesus is like a son of, like, once they said, like, when you read history, you say, like, some people accuse Jesus of being a son of Roman soldier or something. So we have to write something about it. And St. Luke is very is very clear about it when he started his. Let me read it literally. So let me read it for you. When Saint Luke started his gospel, he started it in a way that it's really, really, really interesting, which is, let me see. Let me read it for you. So he says in the beginning of his gospel, inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the things which have been accomplished among us, just as they were delivered to us by those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word. It seems good to me also, having followed all these closely, for some time past, to write an orderly account of for you, most excellent Theophilus. So that's it. So St. Luke was really clear about it. He said, look, a lot of people are spreading stories about him. Here's the true story. I asked the people who lived with him. I asked the people who like really knew him. So that's the point. So can anybody of you help me with telling me like who are the main authors, or they are not much, like who are the authors that, according to the tradition, that they were the authors of the Old New Testament? Sorry. Can anybody help me? Anybody? Anybody?
Do you mean authors of the gospel?
Not all, only the Gospels, like all the Old New Testament. We said that we have the letters, we have the Gospel, we have the Acts, we have the Revelation. So, in general, who wrote all this stuff?
Saint Paul, Luke,
Yeah.
John the Baptist. No, John the evangelist. I think Matthew himself, right?
Yeah.
Mark. There is
Mhm.
just one of the Gospels that it does not carry the name of the person who wrote, right?
Yeah, but I already asked like who's the, according to the tradition, who wrote this stuff? Because if we go to the historical and the literature and all this stuff, we will fall in a lot of like
Okay.
theories and all this stuff. So that's why I asked according to the tradition. Who can help me? You Christians.
Jacob and Tiago. Don't
Yeah.
know how to.
Yeah, he
And
has a letter.
Judah.
Who also Judas also, right?
Judas. And Matthew.
Yeah,
Say
Matthew,
also.
Mark, Luke, John, and also
Yeah.
you missed someone very important. Please.
Also Saint Peter.
Yeah, Saint Peter.
Peter. Yeah.
Yeah. So here are the authors of the New Testament according to the tradition: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, Paul for sure, because he had a lot of letters, and also James, which is called in other languages Jacob, maybe according to the translation, and Judas, not Judas who betrayed Jesus, the other Judas. So here they are, the authors of the New Testament. So let's talk about a little bit about the content. We already mentioned that before, but just let me go for it quickly. So the first part, as we said, is the gospel, the 4 books that are the narrative stories of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. And they are like, let's say, they are the story of Jesus according to each one of them. As I mentioned before, it's not different stories, but the same story told by 4 different people. And let's just say that, like when you fall down the stairs and your mom is looking at you, she will look at the falling in a way that in a way different than you do. She maybe be like scared, but you will be in pain. So that's what I'm trying to explain for you. Like 4 narratives, the same story, but 4 different ways of telling the story. The second part is the Acts of the Apostles, and here are the representatives of the early church. And also we can see in this part the first generations of Jesus followers who made everything possible, as I mentioned before. And we can see this shift from Jerusalem at the end of the book. We can see it in Rome. Also the 21 letters, as I mentioned before, 13 of them are traditionally belong to St. Paul. There's the letter to the Hebrew that has like an unknown author. The letter of Jude, somebody wrote Jude, so it could be Jude, not Judas. And James, Peter, and the letters of St. John. And that's it. So the fourth part is the Revelation, which is like, I like how some people describe it. I forgot where I read it before, but it says that it's a challenging comfort for all the persecuted followers of Jesus. So let us not look at the book of the Revelation. It's like I'll make it quick because I don't want to spend a lot of time on Revelation now. But the book of Revelation is a comfort for everybody who was persecuted. Symbols to explain the book, to explain the situation, and how can we get rid of this situation, how can we live a better life in Jesus Christ in all this persecution. And believe me, it's still useful. It's still living word that we can still read and use in our daily life. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but do I have time? Okay, so I just want to mention it quickly. I'm seeing that a lot of you are yawning now. I know tired for some of you. It's evening, afternoon, morning. So I appreciate that. I'm also like tired. So I will not take a lot of time explaining that. So we know, and I assume that we all know that the word gospel, it has its the Greek origin of this word is a good news, evangelion, a good news. So the only thing that they brought was the good news. And sometimes we say, okay, good news of what? Good news of that God became man, and God was persecuted by men who came for them and was killed, and now he's alive. He resurrected. So this is the point. This is the good news. So sometimes, like for us Christians, we're not allowed to be sad or depressed or anything because we already have this good news. So there's no excuse for us to be sad, no excuse to be depressed or anything, because we have this good news. So sometimes we ask ourselves, okay, like now we have 4 books of the gospel, not 1. Why? I already mentioned why, but let me tell you what is the difference between the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Mark, Luke, and John. For sure, the names are different. The second thing is that the content is also different. It's different in a way that each one of these evangelists wants us to see something different. And this thing is, let me read it so I can't make any mistakes. The Gospel of Matthew, as I mentioned before, he's very rich with all these citations of the Old Testament. He was really like, he read the Old Testament. He knew what it's all about. So St. Matthew was really clever to show Jesus as the new Moses. We know, as I mentioned before, you remember the 5 books of Moses that we call the Torah? Matthew was that clever that he made all the teachings of Jesus in 5 parts. So we can make it like, okay, look, here are the 5 books of Moses, and here are the 5 teachings of Christ. And I can give you the verses later. I don't want to confuse you with the verses now, but look at it. Like Matthew's telling us, Jesus is the new Moses. Moses has 5 books, and Jesus gave us 5 main teachings. Jesus is what? The new Moses. He's the new law. Saint Mark, I love him. His gospel is very short. He goes straight to the point and tells you, look, Jesus is God, and Jesus came here to give us a new life. And you know how did that happen? It happened when Saint Mark starts his gospel with what? With the temptation in the desert. I said, okay, what a start for a gospel. How could this be good news when we start with the temptation, the devil, the desert? What is that about? So Mark is telling us something very nice. He's telling us that Jesus gave us a new start by defeating the devil that Adam and Eve failed to defeat. Look at it. Like when we say the new Torah, the new 5 books of Moses, a new Genesis, he gave us a new life. And we see this new life by his life that is written in that gospel, and also by his death and resurrection. Jesus gave us a fresh new start. Luke, as we know that he was really good. He was really historic. He could collected all the sources and gave it to us, and he was the one who was his point was to say that Jesus is the loyal servant that the prophet Isaiah talked about, and he's the one who will bring light to the nation, because God himself gave this duty to the people of Israel to be the lights of the nations, but they failed to do that. So now Jesus came to be the light and to bring that light to the nations. Luke is telling us that Jesus is real. Jesus is a historic figure. And also, it's really connected with the Acts of the Apostles. Jesus is in love. And Jesus is in love with his church, that he gave all his life for it. And the fourth one, who's the most difficult one, and the craziest and the most clever of all of them, is Saint John, who said that, look, all the Yahweh that he talked about in the Old Testament, now he's a man and he lived among us. So let's revise it quickly. So Saint Matthew said that Jesus is the new Moses. Saint Mark said that Jesus came to give us a new start. Saint Luke said that Jesus is the light and he will bring the light to the nations. And Saint John said, Jesus is God and he became man for us. Remember, every time you read any of these books of gospel, anytime you just read like a paragraph of it, remember these 4 points or a point of each of them, and you will see it like you will read this book differently, believe me. So let's say the last thing. You remember when I said that the gospel means a good news, but it's not only an announcement, okay? It's not an announcement, okay? I'm announcing you a good news. No, it's an invitation for each one of us and for everyone who heard it before and who will hear it, and for us who are hearing this today, to be a part of God's kingdom. Sometimes we think that we become a part of God's kingdom if we do like heroic stuff, or to be priests or nuns or consecrated or something. No, believe me, we become and we help building the kingdom of God by living these stuff that we talked about before, by living the word of Jesus and by showing the world that we are living this. Because believe me, like as the Acts of the Apostles says, that people were looking at the Christians saying, look, how do they love each other? That's why they became Christians, not because of our catechism, not because of our great liturgy, not because of anything. They became Christians, or they made this invitation open by their witness of God's Jesus resurrection. And this is real. And that's it.
Wow. How was it, guys? Did you like it?